And you're back with us in Sao Paulo for ITV's coverage of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Now, for the last 5 years, the winner round Interlagos has gone on to become the world champion. And Mika Häkkinen's in the box seat as we rejoin Martin Brundle and say hello to Murray Walker. Murray.
Thank you, Jim. Well, I have seldom known a pre-race atmosphere like there is here at Interlagos today. You've heard about some of it from Martin, but the drums have been drumming, the chants have been chanting. There was this enormous jam of people trying to get into the circuit this morning. They're all here, and they're here for Rubinho, because Brazil has got a new hero to replace Ayrton Senna. He'll probably never completely replace him, but he's getting pretty close to it. And Rubens, as Martin said, just needs to settle down. Sadly, there is another Brazilian who will not be taking part in this race, because Ricardo Zonta, who was going to be driving the second BAR, had a colossal crash yesterday. I'm delighted to tell you that after he'd been helicoptered away to hospital, he's proved to have nothing worse than lacerations and some ligament problems in his leg. He'll be fit in about 20 days' time, hopefully, for the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. But there is the reigning world champion, the man who has yet to score points this year, Mika Häkkinen, after his problems in Australia, in pole position again here and in Brazil, as he was last year. And already in qualifying, the McLarens have gone faster than last year's pole position. It's a very tricky circuit, 2.7 miles long, 15 bends. You've heard already that they've lengthened the pit lane, which is going to dramatically affect pit stop strategies. But down there on the grid, Rubens Barrichello third behind those two McLaren Mercedes and just marginally ahead of Michael Schumacher. Don't underestimate Schumacher. I've said before, and I'll say again, you've only got to give him a sniff of victory and he'll be there. He said if he was within half a second or so of the McLarens in race trim, he would be up for it. Well, this morning he was only 0.6 of a second off the McLarens. And behind Michael Schumacher, there's Fisichella in the Benetton, and he has already scored World Championship points this year, of course, with his fourth place in Australia. And in sixth position, Eddie Irvine on the grid. So the two Ferraris up there, the two McLarens up there, the Benetton up there, and of course the Stewart. And they've done a fantastic job with the Stewart car this year, after Gary Anderson had joined them to develop Alan Jenkins' original design. Ford have got the engine going absolutely superbly. They hope they've overcome the problem that they had in Australia. Those have to be, at the present moment, the men to watch. But there is an outstanding development too, because Jacques Villeneuve, who's starting last on the grid because he had a fuel irregularity problem, as a result of which he was put back to the grid, was scintillatingly fast this morning in the warm-up. He was ninth fastest, and I, for one, will be watching Villeneuve to see how he comes through the field.
Yes, Villeneuve was very brave yesterday in qualifying, because Zonta had a big crash, and well, the team is saying nothing broke on the car. They're not saying what did happen. I'm a bit surprised that Zonta managed to end up in that particular piece of barrier. It was a pretty nasty accident, and a shame for such a young driver so early in his Grand Prix career. But Villeneuve on a mission, BAR having a difficult time though. Zonta's car wrecked, and as you said, Villeneuve right at the tail end of the field, and well, it's a very difficult beginning for the BAR team. A big problem Michael Schumacher's going to have this afternoon, Murray, is he's something like 5 or 6 kilometres an hour slower than the McLarens down the back straight, and up to 9 k's coming past the pits here. Now, if a Formula 1 car ran into you at 9 kilometres an hour, it'd probably send you up in the air like a rag doll. That's the kind of speed advantage the McLarens have got, and that's just down the straights. Yes, these Mercedes engines have got colossal grunt. They are allegedly 820 horsepower. The new Ford V10 and the Stewarts are said to produce something like 800 horsepower. But the question with the McLarens, and all the other teams are hoping that it will be to their disadvantage, there they are they going to be reliable? They've been working very hard on their reliability since Australia. That was 5 weeks ago. Yes, they certainly had no reliability problems through the weekend, but of course they've done nothing like... Look at the dirt on the track. I noticed that when the safety car was going around, the sort of brown dirt. There has been a sports car race. There were cars flying off the road everywhere. And the first corner is particularly dirty. I suspect the drivers will also notice that, of course, but I think they need a bit of extra caution there. Then the track appears to be cleaning up the further around they go. In fact, normally here there's lots of litter and paper and plastic bags floating around down that back straight. There's a little bit there, but that's bad news if any of that gets in your radiator ducts. Their cars run so fine on their tolerances for their you can see stuff flicking around, look. They run so fine on their tolerances that a paper bag or something in the radiator duct and the engine will cook, and it's hot enough already.
Well, this is a circuit of 15 corners. There's a lot of gradient. You'll see as the cars approach the Yun Cao, which is where both Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna have been off in the past when they were well up in the race, one in the wet and one in the dry. But that Yun Cao, there's quite a distinct gradient upwards, and they're approaching it now. Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard leading Rubens Barrichello. There's Michael Schumacher, Fisichella in the blue Benetton, Eddie Irvine in the red Ferrari, Damon Hill and Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Häkkinen taking them quite slowly. Coulthard needs to get one over on Häkkinen today. I think this is pretty much established as a circuit where Mika's tended to be faster than David. David's given him a run for his money all weekend by a few hundredths of a second. I think if David could beat Mika here, he would score a pretty big psychological advantage. But Mika's taken them round very slowly and now streaks off, having warmed his rear tyres up towards the front of the grid.
Yeah, you can see the gradient now. They're still climbing, and this is the only Grand Prix circuit where they start on a hill. So juggling with the throttle and the clutch is very difficult indeed. It's not at all unusual to see cars stall on the grid, and Rubens Barrichello did it one year. Let's hope for the sake of a really interesting race he doesn't do it this year. We're with Barrichello, watching Coulthard as he sprints away.
Yes, Charlie Whiting, the technical director of the FIA, and the man who controls the start, has also said to them, he's the race director actually, has also said to them that if a car stalls on the start line this year, then they will try and use a safety car rather than a red flag. But it's a very tricky area, as I've already said to you. It's in amongst the walls. It's a lot of blind, top speed, 190-mile-an-hour kinks. And what they tend to do is they put their left foot on the brake pedal, and the clutch, of course, is mostly in their left hand.
Watch the lights then. They come on one at a time. When all five are on, they will go out for a pre-programmed pause, and then off goes the Grand Prix. So it's McLaren, Stewart, Ferrari, Benetton, Ferrari, 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Schumacher is third, and the Benetton is ahead of Eddie Irvine. A solid pack behind them. A terrible start for David Coulthard, a good one for Mika Häkkinen, and David is still there. They've got to get that car off the grid. It's going to be about 1 minute and 10 seconds or 15 seconds before they come round. But meantime, it's a wonderful break for Rubens Barrichello. One of the McLarens out of the way. I don't think there's any way that David Coulthard is going to get back into this race now. And it's Häkkinen. Barrichello is probably on a 2-stop strategy. Häkkinen is almost certainly on a 1-stop strategy, and it's a good break for Michael Schumacher as well with Fisichella. Frentzen is ahead of Damon Hill, and Damon Hill was ahead of him on the grid. And for that matter, Alexander Wurz has gotten ahead of Damon Hill. So it's a bad start for Damon in the Jordan, who is followed through by Panis. The Prost is going much better here, coming through to the end of lap 1. This is the Yun Cao.
I think they've got Coulthard's car into the pit lane. They can, no, not quite. They can start him from there. His mechanics can start the car in the pit lane. But I think he's going to be a full 2 laps worth of time, effectively, before they can get Coulthard up and running. And they've managed to clear him out of the way. You saw the double wave yellows on the start line, so there will be no safety car. Schumacher running wide into turn 1, Barrichello looking secure, Häkkinen looking fast.
Yeah, but is Häkkinen going to be reliable? There's no reason why he shouldn't be, because they've worked very hard on this car since Australia. But it is a gigantically sophisticated, entirely new car. There are no parts common to the 99 McLaren and the 98 McLaren. The packaging is very, very tight indeed, and in high temperatures that can cause problems and vibration problems, because it's a very, very light car. But at the present moment, on lap 62 out of 72. You look down on the leaders, Mika Häkkinen, and he is a full second ahead of Rubens Barrichello. But Rubens can drive a very canny race now. This is his 99th Grand Prix. He was hoping that his 100th would be in his home country in Brazil. But of course the crowd is absolutely on tenterhooks. Rubino is there and only one man ahead of him.
Yes, Barrichello looking strong, actually. I mean, he's got these softer tyres on, and I don't think they're going to show... If they're going to give him a problem, it's not going to be until 10, 15 laps into the race, and he's certainly easily staying ahead of Michael Schumacher. At the moment, you'd have to say that Schumacher looks like he's definitely on a one-stopper, and I would imagine that the McLarens are almost certainly doing the same. I can see that Coulthard is now in the pit lane, and the mechanics are at the back of the car ready to start it up, but he's already 2 laps behind.
What an awful 1999 so far for McLaren. Now let's look at it again. There is Coulthard, past him goes Schumacher, Barrichello up into second place as they go into the Senna S, the downhill section which starts off this lap.
Yes, well done all the other drivers for not creaming into the back of that stationary McLaren. It's so easy to do that as you're going through, just looking through rear wings over the top of rear wheels, and suddenly there's a stationary car in front of you, and that can be a very, very nasty accident, as we've seen before. But they still haven't managed to start Coulthard's car, and he's about to go 3 laps down.
Now let's just savour this moment, because you're looking at something new in Grand Prix racing as you look now down at the pit lane, and poor David Coulthard, who had said just before this race began, he gets away into the Grand Prix, I've never been so confident about doing well at Interlagos.
Coulthard's away, Murray. Coulthard is down the pit lane now and about to join the race.
Well, Mika Häkkinen is the fastest man on the circuit. He's just gone round in 1 minute 19.5 seconds, and that is some 1.2 seconds off.
And there you see the 2 McLarens. Coulthard's got to stay at 120 kilometres per hour until the white line he's about to cross now, and off he goes. So exactly 3 laps
Oh,
left.
look at Barrichello leads, and Häkkinen's in trouble. Häkkinen drops back. Another incredible development. McLaren in trouble again, and David Coulthard, who is now tracking Rubens Barrichello, is a long way behind him, in fact, of course. And Brazil will go absolutely bananas at this. Rubino leads in Brazil on lap 4 out of 72. McLaren, misfortune which struck in Australia, struck again in Brazil. David Coulthard fails to start when he stalls his car. Mika Häkkinen drops back, and now there's a replay as you see Rubino come out from behind Mika Häkkinen's car. Well, I hesitate to use a really extreme word, but this is very, very bad news for McLaren. And now, for the first time, Barrichello comes past the crowded finished grandstands in the lead in Brazil. And if you can't hear the crowd, I can.
Yes, he's got a 2.6 second lead over Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen is still showing in 3rd place, so he lost 6 seconds on that lap, did Häkkinen, but for whatever reason, he now appears to be back up to speed again. There you can see Häkkinen running 4th on the road, 3rd overall, because Coulthard is 3 laps behind.
What could it have been, Martin?
I would guess some kind of gear selection problem or a hydraulic throttle problem where he's clearly lost forward motion for whatever reason, but clearly nothing grinding together at the moment, otherwise he'd be coasting into the pit lane.
Well, you're looking at a very different Rubens Barrichello from the past. But in the past, he was very highly strung, he was very nervy, he was very easily put down when things turned bad on him. But now, with 98 Grand Prix behind him, he's a mature, settled man. The idolatry is the right word to use that was being shown to him here this morning was quite incredible, and it would have unsettled many people. But I spoke to him just before I came up to the commentary box. He sounded totally calm, totally relaxed, completely in charge.
Yes, he's got a 7/10 per lap faster than Michael Schumacher at the moment. You have to wonder whether this Stewart, on its softer tyres, remember, is on a 2-stopper. That means he needs to find more than 35 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher to be effectively in the same part of the race. So we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. I think the one-stoppers will be coming in the late 30 laps, or maybe even later than that. And Häkkinen is back up to speed again now, and in fact beginning to harry Michael Schumacher in second place.
There's the proof. Schumacher, Häkkinen, Eddie Irvine. This is lap 6, the order. Rubens Barrichello leads Michael Schumacher by 3.3 seconds. Häkkinen is right behind the Ferrari. 4th place is Eddie Irvine. Fisichella is 5th in the Benetton. 6th is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and 7th is Wurz. So both the Benettons are well up. Damon Hill is in 8th place. Olivier Panis has come up from right down on the grid into 9th position. Johnny Herbert is in 10th place. So 3 British drivers in the top 10. David Coulthard following Rubens Barrichello, but of course he's now 3 laps down. Lost 3 laps, so McLaren, the most they can hope for is 10 World Championship points in this race, and both the Ferraris are in the top 6. Good news for Maranello.
Didn't Barrichello lead a Grand Prix at Donington that wet day when we were all making loads of pit stops in the Jordan briefly?
I don't think he actually led. He had an absolutely superb drive behind Ayrton Senna, who won one of the most memorable and outstanding Grand Prix of all time. And of course, Ruben started in pole position in the Jordan in 1994 in Belgium, but in my opinion, starting in 3rd position here today was a better performance. He was lucky in Belgium because he managed to put a lap in the dry when everybody else was in the wet. But here he did it on even terms. The Stewart is going magnificently. Wonderful news for Ford, who have given the Stewart team such loyal and considerable backing over the years.
Well, Coulthard's the fastest man on the track in last place, 3 laps down on the leaders. And Villeneuve not moved very far forward. Murray moved from 20th up to 19th.
Yeah, my prophecy that he'd do well has come apart, because he started 21st, only 21 out of the 22 starters, of course, because of Zonta's disappearance. And Villeneuve, as you rightly say, is only up to 19th. A new driver in this race is Stéphane Sarrazin, who has taken the place of Luca Badoer in the Minardi team. Badoer broke his hand and has been replaced by the Frenchman, who is the test driver for the Prost team. So,
sorry, Murray. I'm almost certain that Barrichello's on a 2-stopper, because he's matching the McLaren's pace very evenly, and surely that car's not as fast as the McLaren. So James is in the pits. What can you tell us? James is not in the pits. We've lost James temporarily.
Takagi in the Arrows is running wide after locking up the Japanese driver. Meantime, on lap 8 now in this already fascinating Brazilian Grand Prix, the 2nd World Championship race of 1999, Rubens Barrichello, who was 5th in Australia, leads on his home ground and leads by the margin of 3.4 seconds over the redoubtable double world champion Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. A superb performance. Jean Alesi is starting to go quick, and he needs to in the Sauber. He's down in 13th position at the present moment, as Jackie Stewart on the right confers with his son Paul. Now look at how steadily the car rides. Riding with Rubino now. He's coming up to the set. He's doing about 190 miles an hour as he backs off and drops down into 2nd gear for the left-hander, up into 3rd gear for the right-hander. Now down to the Curva do Sol at 135 miles an hour as he takes it. Now this is the really quick bit. I remind you, 800 brake horsepower behind Rubens Barrichello. He's doing 180 miles an hour as he turns into turn 4, late descent, and climbs now up towards the horseshoe, the Ferradura, which is where Zonta went off. And we've got news from James Allen about McLaren.
Yes, Adrian Newey came down off the wall when it was obvious that Häkkinen had some kind of problem. Looking at the sector times, it's an intermittent problem. I can't tell you specifically what it is, but it is chassis related. I think, Martin, you may be right. Something to do with hydraulics. For sure, it isn't the engine, though, I can tell you that.
Now, look, there is the 2nd place Ferrari being pursued by Mika Häkkinen, and the 2nd place Ferrari is driven by Michael Schumacher. He probably can't believe his luck that he managed to get ahead of Mika Häkkinen thanks to the Finns' problem. And Michael Schumacher would be a mighty difficult man to pass. There's virtually nothing in it as far as lap times are concerned, as you can see, as they come up towards the start and finish point now.
Yes, and unfortunately for Hakkinen, unless he inadvertently switched the ignition off or something, which has happened before in Grand Prix, several times actually, technical problems with the car don't tend to heal themselves in Formula One cars. They tend to just get worse, so Hakkinen must be sitting there wondering when it's going to stop for good. But meanwhile, Barrichello beginning to slow down. On the last lap, for the first time, I saw him working the back end of the car into a corner and having to just struggle to get into turn 6, I think it was, and I wonder now, is a 20-0, it's one of his slowest laps. That's Wurz off the road. I think that's in turn 1, isn't it? But that's Barrichello's slowest lap of the race, the one just previous, so he's just beginning to struggle.
This is giving Damon Hill a big opportunity because Wurz went off there. He's lost a lot of momentum, of course, although the Jordan looks as though it's going pretty slowly here. And we're looking here at the battle between the Sauber of Jean Alesi and Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, Alesi just took position. I think that's... that must be Frentzen then touring in, must be Frentzen touring in the Jordan. That's bad news for him. He's been going exceptionally well all weekend. And Alesi on an absolute charge now. Yeah, things are a bit settled at the moment. 1/7 distance on lap 10 as we go with Rubino now. Rubens Barrichello in the leading Stewart, followed by Michael Schumacher second. Mika Hakkinen is in third place. Fourth is Eddie Irvine. OK, he lost another 0.4 of a second on that lap, Barrichello. There's Wurz going off in the first corner. That's a replay, of course. So now a 20.4 for Barrichello that time. He lost 0.6 of a second of his lead to Michael Schumacher. Barrichello beginning to struggle for grip. Yeah, and Schumacher, therefore, is gaining, of course, down to 2.8 seconds goes the gap. The next man who's catching somebody in front is Olivier Panis, who is in 7th position, gaining on Heinz Harald Frentzen, who we saw have that problem. You're looking at the race leader now, and Panis has had a penalty. Well, that's going to be a long, long penalty because we reckon a pit stop here, in, out, costs about over 30 seconds. So he's going to have a 30 to 40 second delay altogether. Sorry, it was Hill who's made it slowly into the pits, not Frentzen, picked the wrong Jordan up in the distance. Damon in the pits, but it's a very, very slow in lap. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that the reason he's come in is for the team to have a good look at his steering. He thinks in that coming together with Wurz, he may have damaged it. They're going to have a good look. They're changing the tyres whilst he's in as well. Any further information, I'll let you know. Yeah, checking the suspension there, and this, of course, is a...
He's shaking his head. He's not that keen to go out, is Damon, but...
out!
Has he dropped the engine?
Out. Up comes the visor. That's always the sign that the driver reckons his race is over. So out goes Damon Hill. He failed to score points in Australia when things were looking so strong with Jordan. He's failed again. And now here is the leader, Barrichello. Now behind him you see the 2 McLarens with Schumacher ahead of them.
Well, that's interesting. Coulthard has now let Schumacher through, so the Ferrari now has clear air to Rubens Barrichello. So I don't know what's going on there. There's Coulthard getting out of the way. In theory, he has to, because he's being lapped. He has to get out of the way. They're showing him blue flags. So what a disastrous afternoon for him.
He's also got out of the way of Mika Hakkinen, of course. Zanardi in the pits. We've seen Damon Hill pushed back to retire, and the Italian Alessandro Zanardi, who's not been doing at all well in Formula One since he left America as the reigning champion 2 years in succession. He's had new tyres, he's rejoining in the Williams. We're back again with Barrichello, coming up to complete his 12th lap out of 72. 60 laps to go, but Schumacher continues to inch up on him. It doesn't look like it on the screen, but the gap has come down by another 1/10 of a second, and Schumacher, he never gives up in these circumstances. But now you can see that the red Ferrari has got the silver McLaren behind him of Mika Hakkinen. David Coulthard out of the way. Irvine is still 4th, so there are 2 Ferraris in the top 4. Only 1 McLaren in the points at the present moment. This is looking good for Ferrari from the Constructors' Championship point of view. Of course, they already lead the Constructors' Championship by 4 points from Jordan. And now, behind Irvine is Fisichella. Then Heinz Harald Frentzen. Johnny Herbert is up to 7th place. So both the stewards are going magnificently.
Yes, Panis is in the pit lane, serving that 10-second stop-and-go penalty, and leaves in a a load of billowing blue smoke. It's not on our screen, but Panis has served that penalty, so he'll drop out of 10th place. But as you say, Herbert very nicely making his way up through the field. And what's this? This is that's Johnny making a move on Jean Alesi. Nice move around the outside of turn 1. Well done, Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny Herbert has really got the wind behind him now. He had problems in Australia, but he's probably got, well, he has got the best car he has ever been in. The Stewart is absolutely superb. There's the battle for second place. David Coulthard maintaining race pace, but 3 laps behind the top 3. As Eddie Irvine is now dropping back. Well, he's dropping back. He's 13 seconds behind. And more news from James about Sauber this time.
Yeah, nice pass by Johnny Herbert there, but he was helped a little bit. The Sauber drivers have both been told they've been given a rev limit today on the engines. Apparently, when they change up gears, the engine is slipping up into 17.6, 17.7, so they put a low rev range on it, and that's one of the reasons why Alesi got passed so easily by Johnny right there.
Did you hear that? 17.6, 17.7. That means 17,600 revolutions per minute from the V10 Ferrari-based engine.
Yes, they tick over at about 2.5 to 3,000 RPM, and this figure of 800 horsepower is incredible. That's 270 horsepower roughly per litre, and a seriously good road car is about 120 horsepower per litre. So they're just incredible power now, and they're getting it from these very high revs. Interestingly, Rubens Barrichello has eked out a tenth of a second more lead, so whatever his reason for dropping back into the 1:20s, he's sorted it out and picked his pace up a little bit, and it almost seems like it's Schumacher now that's struggling for a little bit of grip.
Well, indeed he is. This is lap 15. Let's think ahead, Martin. If there's a one-stop strategy, they'll probably start coming in round about lap 36, and that means Hakkinen and probably Schumacher. Two-stop strategy, which is likely to be Rubens Barrichello, round about lap 24, and that's about 9 or 10 laps away from us. How will that affect things?
Yes, I think the one-stoppers could stretch it even further than that if they've got a big enough fuel tank. So that's going to put Barrichello, he's only 13 seconds ahead of Irvine in 4th place, so if he is two-stopping, he needs to be getting a bit of a move on at the front of the field there if he's going to maintain any chance of winning the race.
Try as Mika Hakkinen may, he's not closing the gap to Michael Schumacher, never mind getting past him. And if he did close the gap, and if he did try to get past him, I'm sure the track, the width of that Ferrari would suddenly become very, very wide indeed.
Yes, but don't forget that straight line speed advantage that the McLaren's got. I think if Hakkinen can get a sniff of the slipstream of that prancing horse, yeah, I think he'll be past it in a flash down into turn 1, or even down to the back straight into turn 3, but it's a bit bumpy and slippery in there. But at the moment, Hakkinen is barely keeping pace.
Zanardi there is right down. He's running last at the moment in the Williams. His teammate Ralf Schumacher is 9th out of the 19 that are still running effectively. There's 20 still running. David Coulthard 3 laps behind. Damon Hill the only retirement, and there is Johnny Herbert coasting in the Stewart. Let's hope this isn't bad news for Rubens Barrichello. Johnny Herbert out of the race on lap 16.
He's got it wound up again. He's got a little bit of forward. It's a strange place to stop at the bottom of the hill there, Megullo. But he's found some drive, and hopefully he can get it into the pit, but that's going to cost him a bundle of time. That's Zanardi just plain getting out of the way. Pretty inauspicious start for Alex Zanardi in Formula 1. I think everybody expected him to go much better than he has.
Yes, to be fair to him, he's had all sorts of car problems, sensor problems, which have caused the engine to stop and that sort of thing. And it's not exactly a confidence builder as you watch Takagi there being passed, and the Minardi there, and going through on the inside. That was Sarrazin, the French driver, driving in his first Grand Prix in the Minardi as Johnny Herbert. Yeah,
it's a long hill. I wonder if Johnny's just on idle, just on tick over, because that's the kind of speed you'd have if you could find a gear and just get the car home, just using idle speed. Hakkinen having a bit of a ambitious look there at Michael, I think just to annoy him as much as anything, because he was nowhere near close enough for a go. But I think that was Panis who overtook Sarrazin, making a recovery from his stop-and-go penalty earlier on.
Well, this is Michael Schumacher from Germany adopting the French Maginot Line policy. They shall not pass. and they shall not pass is the German Mercedes-Benz powered engine of the McLaren of Finland's Mika Häkkinen, who's swarming all over the gearbox of Schumacher's Ferrari, going for it.
Didn't he have a lot of extra speed going into Ferradura there? I mean, Häkkinen had so much more grip and confidence than Michael Schumacher. I think if he wasn't in the dirty air of Schumacher's car, I think he'd just be cruising up to the back of Barrichello at the moment. But the two McLarens are really just not in the position on the racetrack they expected to be. We expect to be romping off into the distance, and they're tucked up there, and there's not an awful lot they can do about it. But look, this is strange. Like James was saying down in the pit lane, that Häkkinen's problem looks a bit intermittent, because all of a sudden he just drops back for no clear reason.
Yeah, David Coulthard, on the other hand, has just done that first sector of this three-sector lap faster than anybody else. The fastest lap we have is still that of David Coulthard on lap 3, 1 minute 19.3. That's just 1 second off Jacques Villeneuve's lap record from 1997 in the Williams. And that's an indication of how fast the cars are going this year already. This is only the second Grand Prix of the year. The qualification pole time was quicker than last year, and the race laps are within a second of last year, notwithstanding the fact that all the Bridgestone tyres, and they've all got Bridgestone tyres in this race, at the front have got 4 grooves instead of 3 last year. The object of the exercise being to reduce the grip and therefore the cornering speed, and hopefully to slow the cars down a bit. It hasn't slowed them down, but it's stopped them going any faster. And you're watching now the battle on lap 18 out of 72 for second place. Schumacher there, who has yet to score points like Mika Häkkinen and like David Coulthard in 1999. But both the Ferraris, I say again, in second and fourth places are very much in the points for the Constructors' Championship. Lap 18, race order very quickly. Barrichello leads, Schumacher second, off goes Wurz again. That's the second time.
Yeah, Wurz is really, he came in with a bang into Formula One last year, and he just really hasn't carried through his early promise at all. Makes a lot of mistakes, hasn't shown the pace. Fisichella showing him up well, and Wurz, I don't know why, but just hasn't been able to build on his early promise. Let's take a quick break, be back shortly.
you are looking as Rubens Barrichello disappears through the bottom of your picture, still in the lead. At second place, Michael Schumacher. Try as he may, Mika Häkkinen, who's been pushing very hard, can't get past the Ferrari. But Martin, I was saying how very frustrating for David Coulthard, because he's matching the pace of Schumacher second and Mika Häkkinen there in the other McLaren third. But quickly, let's go down to James. He's got news about Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm with the Ferrari boys down here, and they're speculating that Häkkinen's dropping back, not just because that air behind Michael Schumacher is dirty air, but of course it's very hot air as well. He's worried about the temperatures, so he's getting close, finding the temperatures are going up, and he's dropping back again. I think McLaren are going to run 2 or 3 laps longer than Schumacher to try and get Häkkinen some track position on that one stop. I'll tell you something though, neither of them are particularly concerned about the pace of Barrichello. He really isn't that far up the road from either of them.
Dirty air, Martin, technical phrase, explain.
Well, that's the turbulent air coming off. Obviously, as the air passes over the car, and it's worked hard by the wings to give the downforce the drivers need to have these incredible cornering speeds. There's a lot of turbulence and vortices, and it upsets the airflow over the car behind. But I don't agree with that philosophy, because Häkkinen can follow him closely and just sidestep down the straights to get clean air through his car and run just off to one side. And I think he's got some other problem, because he's yo-yoing backwards and forwards, and all of the cars are yo-yoing in terms of grip and lap times. Clearly they're having to just back off a little bit, pick up some grip and go forward. Now it's Barrichello who's slowed down by 0.6 of a second, and Michael's found some grip again. They're really just moving to and fro.
Yeah, you've just seen Barrichello lapping Takagi, the Japanese driver in the Arrows. That may have slowed him up a bit. But it's not going to be very long, I think, before two-stop, we believe, Rubens Barrichello in the lead, comes in for the first of his 2 stops. If he does so, and the McLaren and the Ferrari stay out, they will certainly pass him, of course. But Johnny Herbert, we've seen yet again in trouble. Yet again, he's down there to have another conversation about his retirement with Louise Goodwin.
Yeah, Maury, I was hoping I wasn't going to be doing too much talking to Johnny this year during the races, but it's not turning out that way, is it?
Not at the moment, no. It's a bit frustrating, obviously, but today was something different. We didn't have an engine problem, we didn't have a fire, but we had an hydraulic problem, which is frustrating. But I lost all gears and throttle and everything, so disappointing, but it's good to see Rubens in #1.
Yeah, what about that? He's doing so well, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I think the car was show how good it was in qualifying, but I think obviously the race trim, we was happy with what we had this morning, and it seems to be paying dividends, so hopefully.
Well, that was...
He's still smiling, thanks, Johnny.
That was a breather for Michael Schumacher. He managed to get past Takagi on the entry to the Senna S. Takagi delayed Mika Häkkinen, who's just got past him. Rubens Barrichello still leads. There is the gap for Schumacher second, Häkkinen third. David Coulthard coming up to pass Takagi. They're both well out of the running. Takagi is 16th, David Coulthard is 19th, and the last runner. 2 retirements. Johnny Herbert, you've just heard from, Damon Hill as well.
Yes, I don't know whether Johnny's still around or if he'd even tell us, but I would love to know what kind of race strategy he was on. It might give us a bit of clue as to what Barrichello's doing up the front of the field, but maybe that information will come along later. Meanwhile, Barrichello's lead is now back down to 2.9 seconds as Michael Schumacher starts whittling away to 3/10. Doesn't sound much, does it? But it's an awful long way in a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, and Michael Schumacher, of course, is probably the fittest man in Formula 1. He's absolutely fanatical about personal fitness. He is as lean as a greyhound, not an ounce of fat on him. And that is Trulli's Prost. Jarno Trulli then has just retired. That's the second retirement. He was down in 18th position, but his teammate Olivier Panis, who showed so much promise, has dropped back. He is in 11th place.
Yes, Barrichello just had a bad run through turn 1 with that back marker, and that's gonna, you can see Schumacher clearly closer now to the leader, and that really didn't help Rubens' cause at all. The lead down to 2.8 seconds, but that doesn't take into account the first corner when Rubens had to give the Minardi a wide berth.
Special message for people watching this telecast at Lee Field in Gloucestershire. That is the Tom Walkinshaw Racing Organisation headquarters. Your man, Pedro de la Rosa, the Spanish sensation, and he is that because he finished 6th in his first Grand Prix in Australia, has climbed from 18th on the grid in the Arrows to 10th place. He's ahead of Panis, he's ahead of Villeneuve, and he's now chasing down Pedro Diniz and Ralf Schumacher.
Now look, Michael Schumacher equally, in fact I think he got held up worse by the Minardi, so and Hakkinen getting through well. Is he close enough to get a sniff of a slipstream? I don't think so quite, but he'll certainly be pretty close to that Ferrari as they head down into one. Oh, it's going to be close. Can Mika do anything about it? I don't think he's got enough. I don't think he's close enough, but he's going to have a go anyway. No, he's still got that car. Michael running a little bit wide on the way in. Not wide enough for Mika to do anything about it. If Mika can stay close, look, the Ferrari's pulling away again. It just keeps pulling that 3 or 4 car lengths on the way out of every corner. Let's talk about Jean Alesi, Murray. He's 5th place. He's about to set the fastest lap of the race.
Indeed.
Where's he come from?
From the back, it's quite incredible. He was ticking like a... Out goes Coulthard. David Coulthard runs off the track now. Is he retiring?
I don't know whether he spun in turn 1 or what happened, but Coulthard taking to what is now the new pit lane. I don't know whether he dropped it by getting on the throttle too hard down in turn 1. Hopefully we'll get a replay. Meanwhile, there's no doubt about it, the Ferrari is holding up Hakkinen, and he's perfectly entitled to do that.
But you're right about Alesi, Martin. He started 14th on the grid. He's the fastest man on the track. He just made the fastest lap of the day. He's up into 5th position. And this morning, when I spoke to him, he was ticking like a clock about the Sauber. He said, "It is horrible. I hate driving it." And he was moaning in practice yesterday. Well, he's doing a masterly job of overcoming his problems. He is 5th. Now, the race order on lap 25, roughly 1/3 of the way through the 72-lap race, is Barrichello leading Schumacher by 3.1 seconds. Hakkinen right behind the Ferrari, and ahead of Eddie Irvine, who is 4th, and is being caught by Jean Alesi in the Sauber, 5th. 6th is Fisichella, who's been displaced by Alesi. 7th is Frentzen, and 8th is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. That's good news for Williams, because they had a pretty torrid time in practice and qualifying. In 9th place, Pedro Diniz. So both the Saubers are in the top 9, and Olivier Panis, and Alesi goes faster again.
18.8 for Alesi. He's way faster than anybody else. I mean, he's obviously getting near to a pit stop, I would imagine. So he's somewhere near a 2-stop strategy if he's going to come in. And but I don't know where, if he can find that kind of pace, he should have been pulling it out earlier. But what a mature drive from Rubens Barrichello up at the front there. 3.2 seconds the lead. Not a big one, but haven't seen him make any mistakes, and a truly professional run up there.
Now, I was talking to the Bridgestone people before this race began. I said how much of a disadvantage, and that's David Coulthard. Stop. Well, this looks like... What on earth's going on there?
Don't know what's going on there, but clearly Coulthard's car is still running, and they've asked him to go back out again. He feels obviously he's got something wrong with the car, otherwise he wouldn't have pitted. But look, Schumacher pulling away slightly now, just half a second out of Barrichello's lead on that lap. A great lap from Schumacher, a 1:19.2. So as I said before, the grip level of the tyres or the circuit is yo-yoing, and I guess the drivers are having to just back off a little bit and bring the tyre. You can do that. Bring the tyre back in. Coulthard in the wars again,
right.
having to let the leaders through. That's the right thing to do, but it must be a pretty sad feeling inside the cockpit of that number 2 McLaren.
So first, second, third, you see them in the same picture at the same time. Second, Michael Schumacher, copybook drive. He said, you heard from James Allen before the race began, that Michael Schumacher had said that he was very unhappy about the way things were going.
Alesi in the pits, not got to, and he stalled it. He stalled it. Alesi, having done that stunning performance, he probably found 3 or 4 seconds. He's now lost 22 of them or something while they get this up and running. But that tells you everything about Jean Alesi, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it says a bit about Sauber too. They weren't ready for that at all. They hadn't got the starter ready. But that means to say, of course, that Fisichella is back into 5th position, and David Coulthard is now definitely retiring, reversing off the track. And that is, in comes Barrichello, race leader, Rubens Barrichello. Mika Hakkinen Schumacher takes the lead, and Mika Hakkinen moves up into 2nd place. Now, let's watch this very carefully. It's absolutely critical for the Stewart team that they get this right.
Keep the engine running, Rubens. Just keep calm. Don't blip the throttle of the car. The chassis twist, it makes it more difficult for the guys to put the tyres on. Barrichello away, no problem at all, but it confirms what we thought. He was on a two-stop strategy. He's in at the end of lap 28, and so Rubens there now will be some half a minute behind, and that's going to put him back in 6th or 7th place, actually.
Yeah, and now you're looking at the battle for the lead. A classic battle between Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren. Both of them have yet to score in 1999 as the stricken David Coulthard's McLaren is pushed back out of the firing line, as it were, and Michael Schumacher comes through to start another lap. And Mika Häkkinen is now on his fastest lap of the day.
Yes, Barrichello won't drop quite as low as that, maybe 4th or 5th, actually. Depends exactly how he comes out, whether he can stay in front of Fisichella, who's currently 5th, and will move up to 4th if he passes Barrichello. So Schumacher on track. Let's look at his lap time, a 1:19.3, but Häkkinen behind, a 1:19.1. 7/10 of a second, but you can see it for yourself.
And there's the Benetton in front of them, because Alexander Wurz has rejoined the track. P1 is being shown to Michael Schumacher. Place 1, you are leading, Michael. But he's not leading by very much. He's on lap 29. Just one pit stop at the leaders. Alesi, of course, has been in. Olivier Panis has actually been in twice, unseen by us. Zanardi has stopped. David Coulthard, of course, has as well. And Jarno Trulli stopped twice before he retired from the Grand Prix.
Yes, Panis will be one stop and go and one pit stop. So, again, it's the second half of the grid that are making the extra stop. Tends to be because their cars are not working so well. They use the tyres a little bit harder. And it's a strange thing. The better your car's working, everything comes to you. The tyres are better, you brake better, you have more confidence through the traffic, and you sometimes even use less fuel.
Come on, Alex, get out of the way, get out of the way. There's a whole line of cars ahead of Michael Schumacher now, and Alexander Wurz needs to move over and let the race leader through.
There was a Sauber touring up the hill, don't know which one, it was in the far distance, and we'll have a look at that. But meanwhile, Wurz, no problem at all, letting the two leaders through. No, he hasn't let Häkkinen through. Cut back into the apex. Not good manners at all.
Yeah, Alexander, and it's Alesi out. There is Alesi after his pretty awful pit stop. As up to De La Rosa now in the arrows in 9th position come the leaders.
Wurz realising his mistake and pulled well clear then and let Häkkinen through, but it's cost him some time.
Yeah, Alexander Wurz made a masterly passing move on Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Williams last year at the Senna S's, but he blotted his copybook there.
Well, Eddie Irvine, the World Championship leader, is currently 3rd, of course, some 25 seconds behind this scrap for the lead, including his teammate. But a 3rd place would do Irvine well. It would still keep him in the lead of the championship, and there's an awful long way to go yet.
Lap 30, getting on towards half distance, and Barrichello, who we thought was on a 2-stop, well, he can still do a 2-stop, but it's looking to me less and less likely that he's going to do so. And if he's on a 1-stop strategy, that'll be a big advantage to him. Now, Schumacher is leading Häkkinen. You can see the gap because there they are. Irvine is in 3rd position, Barrichello 4th, Fisichella 5th, Frentzen is in 6th place. Time to leave Interlagos, but we'll be back soon. lap 32 out of 72. Rubens Barrichello down in 4th place after his pit stop. There's the race leader, and Schumacher now leads Barrichello by 28.6 seconds as he comes through, extending his lead marginally over Häkkinen, who has been inadvertently blocked by 2 different drivers at the same place on 2 successive laps, right here.
Yes, Barrichello back in 4th place, as you say. We saw Paul Stewart walking down the pit lane talking to Jean Todt, the Ferrari team boss, because Barrichello is just 2.5 seconds behind Eddie Irvine in 3rd place. And I guess they'll be looking for some kind of easy passage through, given the kind of pace Barrichello has shown in this race so far. He really doesn't need to get tucked up behind that Ferrari for too long.
Well, a lot of people were saying, why the devil should Eddie Irvine make it easy for Barrichello to get through?
He shouldn't, and he probably won't, and knowing Eddie, he almost certainly won't. They were teammates at Jordan, and they're not the best of friends. Eddie hasn't made particularly nice comments about Rubens. In fact, he hasn't made particularly nice comments about anybody recently in the line of Grand Prix drivers. But there's no harm in going and asking, is there really? If you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, they speak well of you in Ireland too, Martin. So we're on lap 33 now. Michael Schumacher leading Mika Häkkinen by 1.1 to 1. You can see how much he's leading him by. The Ferrari, and I remind you that Schumacher was a second a lap slower than Mika Häkkinen in qualifying. And a second of the lap extrapolated would have meant that Mika Häkkinen would have finished 72 seconds in front of him in the race. But that is not the case. Schumacher always said, I say again, if I can get within half...
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big crash.
And that is the Minardi there of the new boy, Sarrazin, who's lost it on the straight. I think he's all right. Yeah, he's lost the right front wheel. And that's an interesting development. He's obviously perfectly all right, thank heavens. And it means that the tether, which is new for this year, to hold the wheels to the body so that they don't go flying off into the crowd, has broken.
Yes, there's a few places around the world you do not want to have a crash, and that is one of them, coming into the pit straight here. I don't know how that happened. I suspect he probably got up a little bit high on the track. It's very dirty out there. It's
nasty bump there.
There is a nasty bump, you're right. Plus, if you do run wide, there's just no way back. It's too dirty. All the tyre rubber ends up there and you go straight in the wall. But Häkkinen has just set a new fastest lap of the race, an 18.8. He's toing and froing behind Schumacher. I'll be amazed if Häkkinen's not talking about carrying some kind of problem through the race when they talk to him at the end.
Well, there's a collection of Finns, if that's the right collective word to use here. They're all wearing Finnish T-shirts with the blue cross of Finland and the words "Go Mika" on it. Mika is going. He's just put up the fastest lap of the race, and he put it up in a time of 1 minute 18.8, and that is only 0.4 of a second slower than the 1997 lap record of Jack Fielder.
Now, this could be the crash. Look, yeah, I think he just got up high coming out through the curves. Maybe if he was following the other car closely, picked up some understeer. That's unbelievable. Look, the car's still flat out. The tyres were spinning. He's still got his foot on the throttle. Big accident.
I've never seen a car spin as many times as that, anyway.
No, a lot of energy going on there, wasn't there? But that's really probably why he stepped out of it unhurt. All the energy got dissipated. As I said before, it's like jumping off the top of a building. It's not the drop that kills you, it's the sudden stop. And luckily for him, that Minardi just kept spinning. But Schumacher again locking up that inside front tyre just to prove how hard he's trying. And they're still yo-yoing around the gap now, 0.9 of a second.
And meantime, Rubens Barrichello is now right behind Eddie Irvine. You haven't seen him. It's making sense of Paul Stewart's trip down the pit lane to talk to Jean Todt, because Barrichello is literally right behind the Ferrari of third-placed Eddie Irvine. Lap 35, 72-lap race. Schumacher and Häkkinen, there they are, first and second. Neither of them have yet come in. Schumacher hits the dust.
Yes, and it wasn't just dust. There was a lot of carbon fibre pieces in there too, Murray. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Schumacher running over some nasty carbon pieces there.
Let's hope.
That's what gives you the punctures, but not always. It's not guaranteed by any means.
Yeah, you get these shards of carbon fibre, which are very sharp indeed. They cut the tyre. It would be terrible for the race and for Schumacher and Ferrari if going over that shard first, he was the one who suffered. Meantime, he's coming up to Pedro Diniz in the Sauber, who is in 8th place, to lap him.
And that's Barrichello, look, on the tail of Irvine, so we're going to see the move, hopefully. I mean, he's in the perfect position. He probably had to lift a little bit through there. Will Eddie come over and protect the inside line? No, he doesn't. Can Rubens get late enough on the brakes? Yes, he can. A nice manoeuvre. Eddie didn't really fight him off too hard, it has to be said.
And I've just watched thousands of Brazilians absolutely ecstatic. Mouths shouting, arms waving, caps going up in the air. Rubinho is back in the top three and flying. And this is the Williams of Ralf Schumacher. He was 6th when he came in. And Schumacher, of course, was 3rd in the Australian Grand Prix. They've done an awful lot of work on the Williams, but the problem that Williams, BAR and Benetton have is they just do not... replay.
Yes, there we go. Look, Eddie really could have cut him off much earlier on in the straight and blocked his line and made him go the long way round. Chose not to do that. I think he probably realised that Rubens had an awful lot more speed. He's on fresher tyres, has a faster car, and is driving the circuit faster anyway. So I think it was the right thing to do for Irvine, to be honest. It was the sense Barrichello was going to be past him sooner rather than later.
Well, you just saw the Williams there rejoining the track, and you see, if you drift across the line, you can very easily bull someone who's coming down that long straight at 180 miles an hour. It's always a problem to find the right approach and exit here at Interlagos. They've experimented with all sorts of things, and they changed it again as recently as last night. So you are watching race leader, lap 37. He's still got to stop.
I think we're about to see how big the fuel tanks are on the respective Ferrari and McLaren's. Not that it's critical here, but the teams will all be taking a note, because there's circuits like Monza where you always want to go as far as you can. This is Villeneuve locking his inside front into turn 1. I think he'll just have a scruffy sort of run round the outside. I don't think it'll be a particular problem there for Villeneuve. And James has some news for us.
Yeah, you're dead right about the size of fuel tanks, Martin. There's no sign whatsoever of any pit activity. I'm in the Ferrari garage. Next door at McLaren, they're not ready either. We've just done 36, 37 laps. Remember last year, the Benetton boys, Furtz and Fisichella, went to lap 46 and lap 47 before making their first stop. And I know that one or two of the teams have put larger fuel tanks in this year. That's a problem that Stewart have. The car designed by Alan Jenkins doesn't have one of the larger tanks. One of the things that obliged them to stop twice today. Interestingly also, Martin, doing a quick straw poll on the subject of why people are dropping off performance-wise. I've not heard any complaints about tyres so far, but there are one or two people who are worried a little bit about temperatures. I think it's a mixture of the both.
Yes, there's also this new fashion, of course, of moving the oil tank forwards. Several of the cars have that this year, and I think that encroaches a little bit in the fuel tank area. So this will be interesting to see. There's a bit of a shootout to see how far they can all go.
Only one of the top 6 has stopped for tyres and fuel, and that's Rubens Barrichello, who is in 3rd place, not gaining on Mika Häkkinen in 2nd position, and Michael Schumacher there, the race leader, as Ferrari come out of the garage. Now, the mechanics are not allowed to come out of the garage and clutter up the pit lane until their driver is coming in, and Michael Schumacher is coming in. There goes Mika Häkkinen past him to take the lead. Now, Michael Schumacher's time is going to be absolutely critical compared with that of Mika Häkkinen in the pits. And the Ferrari boys are very good.
I think the race is going to be won in this next 3 or 4 laps. Häkkinen has to pull out something special now. If he hasn't got any traffic in front of him, he should be able to make some spectacular lap times. Not a great stop from Michael, but not bad considering it's a one-stopper, 10.3. A lot of fuel to get in that car, of course, so not special, but not bad. Häkkinen, a bit of traffic, but it's moving out of the way reasonably well for him. And now he has to sprint, because we all know how good Michael Schumacher is at turning on those spectacular laps at crucial part. Look, Häkkinen half off the road there. He knows what he's got to do.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing that happened in the Nürburgring, which was one of the finest drives that Mika Häkkinen has ever had. He stayed out for a couple of laps last year and put in an absolutely scintillating couple of times and stayed out there to win.
Yes, I'm sure the McLaren team have said to him, push, Mika, push. But he would have seen Schumacher, of course, go in the pit lane because he was following him. There is some traffic ahead. It's the Williams, so we have to wait and see if that's going to hold him up. Hopefully that Williams, a long way behind, should quickly move out of the way.
Well, Mika Häkkinen's previous lap time was 1 minute 19.1. He just completes the lap. And it's marginally, he's not made up any time on that lap.
No, I think it's Zanardi. He's lapping in the 22s, a long way off the pace, 3 seconds and more slower than. But is he going to hold him up into turn 3? Yes, he almost certainly is, because Häkkinen nowhere near close enough, and Zanardi is going to have to follow him through 3. This is hurting Häkkinen. He needed a clear run. Look at him sliding, drifting the back of the car, giving it all the throttle he can. Now he's got to come up the inside. It's a tighter line. He'll have to lift off earlier. It'll cost him time on the exit. Not a good lap for Häkkinen.
Who is leading the Brazilian Grand Prix, running very, very tight here. Into the pits comes the Benetton.
Fisichella stalled. There's a problem there. Fisichella shaking his head. Can't select first gear, obviously.
Sixth place.
Look, he's pushing the paddle. He can't get it into gear. Orange light flashing on the screen. Don't know what that means. Could be hydraulic pressure light. So Fisichella, as you rightly say, Murray, falling out of 6th place.
Well, now, hear this. Michael Schumacher, at the end of that lap, having made his pit stop, was 30 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. And we reckon that a pit stop takes something like in excess of 31 seconds. So when Mika Häkkinen does come in, unless he can get some clear laps now and stay out and try to build up the gap, it's going to be mighty, mighty close. Barrichello, meantime, is only 11 seconds behind Schumacher in 3rd place. Eddie Irvine has dropped back. He's in 4th place, 2 seconds down. Frentzen is 5th, but catching Irvine. Ralf Schumacher is 6th, well back. He's been lapped. Only 5 drivers on lap 41 on the same lap.
Now Häkkinen's done the fastest first section, and he has got some clear track. Barrichello, of course, has got to stop again yet, so that 2-stop strategy definitely has not worked for Rubens Barrichello at the moment. Louise down in the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm with Damon Hill down here. Damon, it's taken you a very long time to collect your thoughts and come and have a chat with me, which I take to be a measure of your extreme anger at that incident. Would I be right?
Well, I don't... Yes, I mean, it was angry. Of course, whenever you're not in a race, you're angry, but I didn't think it was very good driving from Alexander there to keep coming over. You know, I'd outbraked him, and really I'd won the corner, and he just kept coming round, so put me out of the race. But I got further than I did in Australia, so.
I was going to say, that's 2 in a row. That's bad luck.
Yeah, I'm not got off to a very good start to the season, but I think things will come good. I mean, there's still 14 races left.
Thanks, Damon.
Well,
18.4, Murray, for Mika Häkkinen. Now he's put the time in we were expecting, but is it too late? 1 minute 18.4, a new fastest lap of the race, of course, and Häkkinen on a charge, but he lost 2 laps, 2 seconds, and look, Schumi stayed in front. That's the crucial 2 seconds that Häkkinen lost in the traffic.
Schumacher has regained the lead. The situation is exactly the same
Sorry,
as it
that's
was.
Irvine out of the pits. I'm sorry, that's Irvine out of the pits. Of course, Schumacher's half a minute behind until Häkkinen makes his stop. And in fact, the back of Irvine is the last thing that Mika Häkkinen wants to see at the moment.
What's Eddie going to do? He can see that it's a McLaren. He'll know that it's Mika Häkkinen, and he's not going to make it easy for the Finn to pass him, and that could be a boon to Michael Schumacher.
Remember, last year in the Nürburgring, Eddie Irvine took a fair bit of stick for letting Häkkinen through rather too easily, and Häkkinen went on to win the race at the Nürburgring last year, which was crucial for the championship. I would imagine they'll bring Häkkinen in.
He's coming in. He's definitely coming in.
They know that Irvine is going to make it as difficult and as slow as possible. They're bringing him in now.
Yeah, watch him peel off and dive into the pit lane. And I remind you, Michael Schumacher's time for the pit stop was 10.3 seconds. James, he's all yours.
So 35 seconds, I reckon, the lost time for a one-stop strategy. That was an executive decision from the pit wall. Ron Dennis called it for Häkkinen to come in because he could see Irvine was going to hold Häkkinen up. Can he do it in less than 10.3? They checked the radiators, obviously worried about temperatures. 8.6, 9.1. It's very fast, very close.
Yeah, he's gained a second on the pit stop. Now it's crucial where Michael Schumacher is, as Mika Häkkinen has got that long drag down alongside the straight. We're going to see Michael
Schumi's
Schumacher
just
in a
gone
minute.
past the pits now, Murray, so Schumi's actually quite a long way behind, although, of course, Häkkinen's got this long run at 120 Ks. I think he's going to come out in front. I think he has done enough. Let's have a look. Yes, he is.
There's Schumacher,
there's
but he's flying. And Mika Häkkinen has got up to speed. Now, that pit stop may have decided the result of this race, because Mika Häkkinen now leads Michael Schumacher after what we presume was going to be their only stop. And they're on lap 43. McLaren leads Ferrari. Barrichello in the Stewart is still in 3rd position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan, the sole Jordan, has now moved up into 4th position and is catching Barrichello. He's ahead of Eddie Irvine, who has stopped, and Frentzen has not stopped. And Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, albeit a lap down, nevertheless is in 6th position in the points, ahead of Diniz 7, Villeneuve a superb 8 from 21st on the grid, Tanis is 9th and Wurz is 10th. De La Rosa is 11th, Takagi, Zanardi, Genet are the remaining drivers, and the following retirements: Fisichella, Salazar, Alesi, Coulthard, Jarno Trulli, Johnny Herbert, Damon Hill. 15 running out of the 21 that started. We're on lap 44.
Yeah, so that 1 minute 18.4 was just enough to give Häkkinen track position. He's obviously run that 3, 4 laps longer at the higher speed, and that's just made the difference. Michael Schumacher, they're now both on a reasonable amount of fuel, the same amount of fuel. That is a Stewart, that must be Barrichello. Barrichello out of the race, and he's lost his 3rd place.
Oh dear, and after all the promise.
Yeah, that's a smoking engine, so clearly some kind of top-end problem in the engine, I'd imagine. Hasn't exploded in a big way, but whenever you see a mixture of blue and white smoke coming out of the back, you know water and oil have mixed, and there's some serious gremlins going on in there.
Well, a downcast, crestfallen, obviously disappointed Rubens Barrichello waves to the crowd. They'll be just at the point, and they'll start to leave now, I bet you, as Pedro Diniz retires from the race in 7th position in the Sauber. He spun off. You can see that even if he got the engine running, he wouldn't. I don't think he'd be able to drive out of that, because look at the curb between him and his front wheels, and of course the very low bottom under tray of the car.
That's where Senna spun off in 94, of course, but Diniz has gone to the inside, which is actually quite unusual there. But I think he dropped the clutch a bit too early and stalled the engine. So Diniz out of the race, and really we're down to very few runners. We've got Villeneuve in 6th place, albeit having a pit stop as we speak.
Yeah, but we may be down to a few runners, but look at this.
Hang on a minute, look. There goes Diniz, obviously trying to come up the inside there of the arrows, and that's how come he ended up spinning to the inside, which is an unusual place to be. Michael Schumacher just took 1.1 seconds out of Mika Häkkinen on that last break, on that last lap. Let's take a quick break. Be back shortly.
Now, is Mika Häkkinen therefore slowing down? He's just run very wide indeed on that corner. It looks as though he might have a return of that intermittent problem, which cost him trouble and time at the earlier on, because Schumacher is definitely catching him.
Yes, we aborted the break because thought we saw something in the background. We'll stay with it for a little bit longer, and let's see what kind of lap time Michael Schumacher's got this time over the line. He's clearly closed the gap since they rejoined the track after their respective pit stops. Häkkinen now with some traffic ahead of him, but we do know that Häkkinen's got a straight line speed advantage, and now the roles are reversed. If Michael Schumacher can catch him, it'll be Schumacher that's travelling in the dirty air as the arrows sail straight past the apex of turn 1 and holds the lot of them up. That's a disaster for Häkkinen.
It's Takagi in the arrows being pursued by Genet, who's got his race to run. He wants to get past Takagi, and Takagi wants to keep him back, but Mika Häkkinen muscles his way between the two of them, and now Michael Schumacher, who had gained ground there, closes up, but he's got the same problem. Are they going to move over and let him through?
Yes, in the end it actually worked out because of his tremendous speed down the back straight. It actually ended up not too bad for Häkkinen. He was able to clear and leapfrog the pair of them at the same time. So Schumacher coming up the inside now of the Minardi, no problem at all. I think it'll all end up square on that one. We will now take that break.
Achilles heel of McLaren has struck again, if an Achilles heel can strike, with David Coulthard out of the race. 2 retirements in Australia. Mika Häkkinen running reliably, but we think a bit intermittently. We believe he's got a problem of some kind, notwithstanding the fact that he now leads on lap 48. Leads Michael Schumacher, both of whom have still got to score points in the World Championship by 3.4 seconds. Eddie Irvine in the second Ferrari on a possible 4 World Championship points on lap 48 out of 72, because he's in 3rd position, and if he finishes in the top 3, well, if he finishes in the top 6, he's still going to be leading the World Championship when it goes to the first race in Europe at Imola on May the 2nd. And a Ferrari in the lead at Imola would be something to see. 4th position, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's now made his pit stop, ahead of Ralf Schumacher. Frentzen is catching Irvine.
This is Häkkinen, look, locking up the inside front. Does he make it to the apex? Just about, so it didn't cost him too badly, but he's now managing to pull away. There's something very sick just going past the pits. Don't know what it was, but I could certainly hear it. But Häkkinen, having done that very slow, his first full flying lap after his pit stop was a very slow 21.0. He's now down in the low 19s and pulling away. He's now got a 4-second lead. There he goes again, look. Been doing that too many times, Mika.
21 cars started this race. Ricardo Zonta did not, of course, after his big crash yesterday. He's perfectly all right. Just got a bit of an injury to overcome before Imola. And these are the 12 out of 21 in race order on lap 49 out of 72. Häkkinen and Schumacher now with an extending gap between them. Mika Häkkinen there now leading by 4 seconds. Eddie Irvine in the second Ferrari is in 3rd position. So Ferrari are on a possible 10 World Championship points to match that of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren if they finish in the order they are now. 4th is Frentzen in the Jordan ahead of Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, who has now unlapped himself. Olivier Panis in the Prost is 6th, and that's the first time he's been in the points for a long time.
Yes, Häkkinen, as you can see for yourself, took another 0.8 of a second that time, so Häkkinen now easily pulling away from Michael Schumacher.
You can see it there. They're coming down towards Lake Descent. They drop down to that 3rd gear corner, which they've taken about 110 miles an hour, before the long climb up to the Ferradura, round the Pinarino, round the Duckbill. They drop down a bit then to turn 12, climbing up to Yuncao to complete another lap.
You know, you were sort of right at the beginning of the show, Murray. Villeneuve has come up from last place on the grid due to that fuel irregularity and being docked and pushed back there. He's currently in 7th place. I think it's more because of unreliability of other cars than steaming through and passing everybody, but not going too bad. BAR maybe steering a point in the face.
And he's catching Olivier Panis. He's only 2 seconds behind him, and it would be justice if the BAR team scored a World Championship point in only their 2nd Grand Prix. They've put together what is potentially a gigantically strong team. They've had a lot of political misfortune with the governing body of the sport, the FIA. They had Zonta's crash yesterday, so their steep learning curve is practically vertical.
Yeah, there's 2 rules in Formula One. One is don't go against Bernie too often, and rule 2 is see rule 1. And I think there's a bit of a learning process going on there somewhere.
Well, there is the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine in 3rd position, a massive 59 seconds behind the 2 that matter, well, the 1 that matters at the present moment, which is Mika Häkkinen, because he's now striding away from Michael Schumacher. The last thing I would ever suggest about Michael Schumacher is he's going to settle for anything other than a win, but he's definitely dropping back.
Yeah, so Eddie Irvine, they're beginning to come under pressure from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the 4th place Jordan. We saw him just flash in the background. There's a car coasting. Which one is that? That's Villeneuve, isn't it? It's I think it was the BAR Villeneuve making its way slowly into the pits. There's Frentzen,
yeah.
And homing in towards Eddie Irvine with quite a bit more pace, it has to be said.
So Heinz-Harald Frentzen from Mönchengladbach in Germany, an undertaker's son, and he learned to drive, driving the family hearse, believe it or not. And he's driving something considerably quicker now, and he's in 4th position, and he can see his quarry in front of him, his quarry being Eddie Irvine in the Scarlet Ferrari, and behind Frentzen is... There's Villeneuve, yeah, you were right.
We put a curse on him, didn't we?
Yes, you were right, Villeneuve. So that's yet another retirement, and that means to say that we are down to 10. Damon Hill alongside Eddie Irvine. Damon alongside Eddie Jordan. I'm sorry, not Eddie Irvine. Eddie Irvine is certainly otherwise occupied at the present moment. They may both come from Ireland, but they're doing very different jobs at the present moment. We're on lap 52, another 20 laps to go in this 72-lap race.
Eddie Irvine's never going to forgive you for saying that, I can tell you now.
Now, it's a bit settled at the moment. Let's have a break and rejoin us soon. Lap 54 at Interlagos, Sao Paulo. And the man on the circuit to watch at the present moment is the one you're going to see very shortly in the yellow Jordan. It's Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's chasing down the Scarlet Ferrari there of Eddie Irvine. There is Frentzen. They are third and fourth. It's lap 54, as I said. Mika Häkkinen is 6.2 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. And it looks as though that is the race settled at the front. I've said that sort of thing before, and it immediately changes. But Häkkinen leads Schumacher. Irvine there leads Frentzen, who is catching him. Ralf Schumacher is in fifth position in the Williams, a lap behind, ahead of Olivier Panis in the Prost.
Well, as we see the arrows, De La Rosa pulling out of the race. It's interesting, isn't it? Third Irvine, fourth Frentzen, fifth Ralf Schumacher. The three drivers that were first, second and third in Melbourne running pretty much line astern as they were then, with very, very similar performance. But we got Häkkinen and Schumacher some 56 seconds up front of that. So I think it gives you a bit of a clue of what may have happened back in Melbourne if we hadn't have lost the two McLarens and Michael Schumacher. But nonetheless, three guys who scored good championship points in Melbourne, currently running third, fourth and fifth.
Great race for Germany, of course. Michael Schumacher second, Frentzen fourth, Ralf Schumacher in fifth place. Three Germans in the race.
Mercedes-Benz engine leading, of course.
And James has news from Ferrari.
I think Eddie Irvine's got a problem, guys. He's about to get given the board saying box, which in Italian is the Italian for meaning come into the pit. I saw Stefano Domenicali coming down the pit lane, giving his stopwatch to Nigel Stepney, the chief mechanic. I've half a hunch they haven't put enough fuel in that Ferrari. I'm not sure, but I've half a hunch that might be what it is. Anyway, Eddie Irvine coming in shortly, some kind of problem.
Well, that can be just about the only reason. I think you're probably spot on there, James, unless there's a mechanic who says, look, I don't think I got the left rear wheel nut on properly. Obviously, if they had a fuel rig problem, as you say, they didn't get enough fuel in the car on the stop, and they'll know that because they make checks afterward. They weigh the fuel rather than measure it in terms of quantity. So let's wait and see what happens.
Well, Marc Genet in the Minardi, who is in 10th position now, and there's only 10 drivers left in the race at the present moment, being caught and about to be lapped again. He's already been lapped twice by Mika Häkkinen. I suspect Genet will move over. He jolly well should do anyway, but it's Heinz-Harald Frentzen, of course. Bad news for Damon Hill, because the German has joined him from the Williams team, and it was ironic that when Damon Hill was fired, as sadly he was, by the Williams team, it was Heinz-Harald who placed him. Now they're together, and Frentzen has certainly got the drop on Damon Hill this year, because Frentzen was second in Australia. He's running fourth at the moment, and looking as though he's going to take third position as Häkkinen goes through and passes and laps again Marc Genet, because of that, the gap will come down a bit.
Irvine in the pit from third place, so we'll wait and see what they do. If they just dump a load of fuel in it and send him there, now we pick him up, and what are they doing? There's something that they're holding him for some reason. I couldn't see any work going on the car, but they were holding him.
Well, anyway, Heinz-Harald Frentzen has gone through into third position. It looks as though the German is going to be on the podium for his 2 first races for Jordan. What's happened, James?
Well, Murray, no fuel went in there. I saw Nigel Stepney, the chief mechanic, working in air hose, and I think what they were doing was trying to blow air into the radiators. I think there's obviously a lot of debris out there. There's a huge crowd today, lots of sweet wrappers and ice cream lolly wrappers and things like that. Maybe Irvine's temperatures were going high, but just wanted to clear the debris out the radiators. Certainly no fuel going in anyway.
Nice call, James. Funnily enough, there's doesn't seem to be as much debris on the Senna S turn as I've seen many times in the past. There's an enormous grandstand there that overlooks the track, and they chuck the stuff out, and of course if any of that blows up into the side pods and blocks the radiators, these engines run so hot now in order to reduce the size of the engine by reducing the size of the water jackets, that if the temperature goes up at all, it can mean a very severe problem very quickly.
Yes, he must have a very, very high temperature, because it's a difficult call to pull a car in from third place when, especially if you've got a chance to get some points over McLaren, as Ferrari have this afternoon, when there's only 16 laps to go. So Irvine has probably got sky-high temperatures there.
Let's call the situation with the teams. Mika Häkkinen leads for McLaren, but David Coulthard long ago out of the race. There's only one potential finisher. He may potentially win the race, but that's bad news in the Constructors' Championship. Both the Ferraris are still running, both in the points, although Irvine's been in. There is the first of them. Michael Schumacher is second, Eddie Irvine is fifth. Only one Jordan, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Damon Hill is out. Only one Williams, because Schumacher is fifth, but Zanardi is out. And only one Prost. Panis is in sixth position, but his teammate Jarno Trulli retired some time ago. There's only 10 of the 21 runners left still going, and we're on lap 58 out of 72.
It was a disaster for Eddie Irvine, Murray. Look, it's put him back, as you've just pointed out, but it put him back to fifth place. It wasn't that he just lost out to Frentzen, who was giving chase. It's put Irvine right back behind, 10 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, way back in fifth place. He moves from a 6-point potential to a 2-pointer. And, well, I hope they pulled a fairly big plastic bag out of that thing, if it was indeed the problem.
Well, he'll still be leading the World Championship if he finishes where he is, irrespective of where Mika Häkkinen finishes, Michael Schumacher finishes. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is the only man other than Schumacher and Häkkinen on the same lap, 59, because Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, fourth place. Good race for Ralf, because he finished third in Australia, partly because of attrition and reliability, but to finish first, or to finish anywhere, first you've got to finish, to use the old cliche. Eddie Irvine in fifth place, but he's catching Schumacher now, and Olivier Panis is sixth.
Yes, but I can't see Frank Williams being that happy, Murray. I mean, Ralph's done a solid job, but he's over a lap behind, albeit in fourth place. Zanardi a mile off the pace, pulled out of the race. I think he had a bad misfire and an engine problem, just a guess on that one. So it's really not great times for the Williams team at the moment.
Well, it ill behoves me to criticise anyone who supports Formula One, but there is no doubt about the fact that the Supertech team will be looking very hard indeed to find more power. I don't think the Williams problem is anything to do with the chassis. I think it's to do with the lack of power. And Fisichella, of course, out of the race. in the second Supertech powered Benetton, Alexander Wurz, is in 7th position, but a lap down. Jacques Villeneuve, of course, out of the race. The second race in succession that neither of the BARs finished. Their first 2 races. Zonta, of course, went out with a gearbox problem in Australia. Jacques Villeneuve lost his rear wing. Zonta failed to start in Brazil after that big crash yesterday, and Jacques Villeneuve has retired. So, Mika Häkkinen leads. We're going to leave, but as ever, we'll be back.
Watching Häkkinen for 2 or 3 laps now. If you watch him through the fast left-handers, and we've not really got one coming up, he's leaning heavily against his headrest. Maybe that's just for comfort. He's still got a pretty good pace on him, but the long sweeping left-handers coming in towards the end of the lap. And this is a tough racetrack. It's an anti-clockwise one with a lot of high-speed left-handers as well, and that does tend to give you a neck problem, even as fit as these drivers are. This is the toughest circuit in the world now on the neck, and that just it hurts your shoulders. It takes power out of your shoulders. And I'll watch Häkkinen again as he heads down the pit straight this time. Maybe he's just using it for comfort, but I think Mika's feeling the strain of this race, because Michael Schumacher has now pegged his lead at 6.7 seconds.
Yeah, he's actually gained just a very little on him. But of course, it's not only a very, very bumpy track, but it's an anti-clockwise track in comparison with virtually all the others which are clockwise.
Look at Häkkinen's head, look, he's leaning over, he's resting it against the side of the car. So definitely I think Mika's feeling the pace here a little bit. I don't think it'll be a major problem for him.
Well, wait for Schumacher to come through. He's cut the lead by 0.4 of a second. It's down from 6.7, it was 6.8, and it's now down to 6.3. So if you say that means 12, well, he might just close up on Mika Häkkinen unless Mika Häkkinen slows down. But who knows? You never know whether a driver has got a problem.
He is, you know. Look, he's leaning over, right over, even through turn 4 there, Murray. Sorry to interrupt, but even through turn 4 there, Häkkinen leaning heavily against the headrest, the side protection of his car. As I say, that takes so much energy out of your shoulders. And then that's when the car, it's very easy for the car to get away from you. But 6.3 second lead, he's got enough in his pocket, but he's got Schumacher will keep him honest, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's where Michael Schumacher's super fitness could count. Mika Häkkinen's fit, of course, they've all got to be fit. You're watching Ralf Schumacher now in the Williams in fourth position. behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 23 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and not gaining. But he's got a worry, and that is that Eddie Irvine is speeding up and is catching him. Eddie Irvine's last lap marginally quicker than Schumacher's, not quick enough to catch the German and get past him if they maintain their current speeds, but nevertheless a worry.
Yeah, it's actually a full second, Murray. So Irvine is taking 6 seconds out of Ralf Schumacher in 4th place. And Irvine, look, they're telling Ralf in no uncertain terms on his pit board, Irvine is catching you. It's now down to 3.9. Irvine taking another 0.8 of a second out of him on that lap, so he can catch him and pick up that extra point.
So, lap 64, who's left? Only 9 of them is the answer out of the 21 who started. You're looking in the background at Michael Schumacher, who is 6.4 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen still 3rd, well out of the running in terms of winning this race, but very much on a podium position at the present moment, because he's the only man other than Schumacher and Häkkinen who is on the same lap 64. Ralf Schumacher that you're looking at in the Williams is a lap down, but in 4th place, being caught by Eddie Irvine. The gap is now down to 4 seconds. Eddie Irvine could still get those 3 points for 4th position, which would help his World Championship lead. If he finishes this race in the top 6, he's still going to be leading the championship, and Olivier Panis is still in 6th position. 7th is Alexander Wurz, 8th is Takagi in the Arrows, 9th is Marc Genet in the Minardi, and all the rest are out.
Ralf looking a bit tatty on that lap, and as you can see, the gap's down to 2.9. Eddie's already got a second on him on this lap, and you'll see Eddie coming into the background anytime soon. Depends on how they pan the camera, but Eddie Irvine homing in by 1.2 seconds that lap onto the tail end of Ralf Schumacher, and that's the main scrap going on at the moment, other than Michael Schumacher relentlessly pursuing Häkkinen, but he can't get that lead under the 6-second mark.
Your head doesn't have to loll very much in these new cars to hit that new safety collar, which undoubtedly saved Ricardo Zonta's life. It's one of the things that Professor Sid Watkins and his safety committee have brought into Formula One with enormous success. But it means that you've only got to move your head a few degrees and you're up against the support of that collar. And Mika Häkkinen is maintaining his lead as near as makes little difference, because it was 6.3 seconds. But Schumacher is now on a very, very quick lap. He smelt that something is happening to Mika Häkkinen. He's just gone through the first sector of the course faster than anybody else, and he's marginally quicker than Mika Häkkinen in the second sector. I would estimate that the lead is going to come down to about 6 seconds, but we're on lap 66 now as you watch Michael Schumacher. 6 laps to go. McLaren leads, Ferrari 2nd, Jordan 3rd, Williams 4th, Ferrari 5th, and Prost 6th. Only one constructor with 2 cars in the point-scoring top 6 positions, and as usual, it is the very reliable Ferrari team.
Well, hopefully the TV director here in Brazil will pick up the battle between Ralf Schumacher and Eddie Irvine down to just 1.6 seconds. So by the end of this lap, Eddie will be ready to pounce, hopefully. James, what can you tell us from Ferrari?
Well, I think, Martin, slight change of subject, actually, but I think there'll be a pretty big inquiry when they get back to their base in Maranello. You know, they brought Eddie Irvine in quite late, and if you think about it, they could have brought him in a bit earlier to hold Häkkinen up. He actually only had half a lap of holding Häkkinen up, but if you think back to the Nürburgring last year, a race you and Murray were talking about a moment ago, Irvine there didn't hold Häkkinen up for very long. He got into trouble for it. Here today, I think it's the management that may have let it down.
Well, Michael Schumacher is certainly pushing. You've just seen his left front lock up as he put the brakes on. He's gained 0.3 of a second in one sector on Mika Häkkinen, but he needs a lot of those 0.3 of a second sectors. Coming through to complete lap 66 now, the German. He's on his 67th lap, and the gap is still over 6 seconds. So Mika Häkkinen may, we don't know, but he may be feeling the strain a bit, but it's not dramatically affecting his chances of winning his first Grand Prix of 1999. And if he does so, that would be his 10th Grand Prix victory. The man who took some 96 Grand Prix before he won one at Jerez the year before last, when that win was gifted to him by Jacques Villeneuve and David Coulthard, both of whom moved over. Then, of course, he won his second race at Melbourne in very controversial circumstances when, again, David Coulthard moved over. But you're watching the indomitable, and I use the word advisedly, Michael Schumacher. Never, ever give up. Never, ever relax is his motto. He's driven, as ever, a masterly race in a car which is not quite the match of the McLaren. Better than it was the last race in Australia, and they've got a lot of improvements in the pipeline. But whilst it doesn't look as though he's going to win this race, from the Constructors' Championship point of view, Ferrari will be not at all unhappy. With Eddie Irvine still in 5th position on 2 World Championship points, now right behind Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, indeed. So he's taken about 2 or 3 tenths out of Ralph on this lap. I just wish we could pick it up. It's down to 6/10 of a second. We can only talk to you about the pictures we're given. It's nothing to do with us, unfortunately. We're not able to control the picture, but hopefully the director here will pick up that scrap, and Eddie Irvine really homing in on Ralph. And there it is, finally. Yes, thank you very much. Now that's into turn 3, so now Eddie's got the problem of the dirty air we talked about earlier on, but Ralph's got the problem of seeing a Ferrari large in his mirrors.
Well, there's possibly 80 horsepower difference between the Supertech V10 and the Ferrari V10, and it can mean as much as 6 miles an hour difference on the long straight that they're approaching. And if Eddie Irvine can get up tight behind the rear wing of Ralf Schumacher's Williams as they come out of the Junckau, he should be able to pull out of his slipstream and take that 4th place back again from the German in the Williams as they complete the lap.
Yeah, is Eddie a bit over-eager on the throttle there and had to get back out of it, so that's enabled Ralph to get a few car lengths, and this is not the position Eddie needed to be in. He needed to be 3 or 4 cars further down the track heading into the pit straight, so not many laps left to make this move.
Eddie Irvine had 8 podium positions last year, second or third positions, and of course he won in Australia. He is always very honest about his relationship with Michael Schumacher. He says, Michael is better than me, but I think I'm the match of anybody else. Well, is he going to be the match of Ralf Schumacher in the Williams?
You had a very, very quick flash there of Sir Frank Williams and Patrick Head watching anxiously as the Ferrari bears down on their man Ralph, who should be more than up to giving him a good scrap. Eddie needs that extra point. Remember, he is the World Championship leader after all.
Meantime, on lap 69 out of 72, Michael Schumacher is really going for it. The fastest first sector of the race. He's got the time, the gap down to well under 6 seconds, only just over 5 seconds, and we believe that Ralf Schumacher may have to make a pit stop, in which case that would certainly give Eddie Irvine the 4th place back with no problems at all. And Michael Schumacher continues to do sector after sector faster than Mika Häkkinen, but Häkkinen is now on his 70th lap. He's only got 2 laps to go after this one, and Eddie Irvine certainly dropped back there. Now well, Ralf Schumacher is certainly not coming in on this lap. Now there is Häkkinen, there is Schumacher, Michael Schumacher. The gap was 5, it is now 5 seconds. Well, Mika Häkkinen's got a fight on his hands, but 5 seconds at this stage of the race is a big lead.
Yeah, I think Häkkinen can afford to back off a little bit, and as long as he doesn't get flustered by Michael making a final major effort on him, but he is the reigning world champion, of course, and I think Mika is way beyond now that point where he would have been flustered into locking a brake badly, sailing past a corner and giving away a lead like that. Traffic ahead of you always makes you nervous. It's always an unknown, and you momentarily your race can be in control of another driver. But Häkkinen picking up this arrows at a pretty good spot on the racetrack. He'll breeze past that car, I would imagine, before he gets to the first corner. So we're homing in on Häkkinen now. What are we going to watch? We're going to watch Häkkinen taking a bit of grass and some curb and very little of the racetrack.
Well, it's 5-second lead. Mika Häkkinen's just done the fastest lap of the race. He's got past Tora Takagi, and that fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 18.448, is just he's less than 1/10 of a second off the fastest lap we've had in recent years at Interlagos, that of Jacques Villeneuve. So you can say now, with all honesty, that the 1999 cars are every bit as fast as the 1998 cars, notwithstanding the new tyre regulation, because Mika Häkkinen qualified faster than his own pole position time last year, and he's just within a tenth of a second of the fastest lap we've had here.
Well, I think that was psychologically was a great lap from Mika Häkkinen. His neck has definitely gone, because you can see him leaning over through every left-hander, but it just doesn't matter, he's flying. And I think it was saying to Michael, listen, buddy, you can have a push, and my answer is not to get flustered and ragged. I'm just going to take a second a lap out of your very best effort. Thank you and good night. I'm off.
Yeah, and he's coming up to start his last lap now. His lead is back to almost 6 seconds. Frentzen is third. Ralf Schumacher, we thought, was going to have a splash and dash, that is, dash into the pits, just take on a modicum of fuel, but Williams must have been very worried about his consumption if that was the case. Anyway, Mika Häkkinen is now very much on target for his 10th Grand Prix win of his career in his 114th Grand Prix. He's driven, as ever, a fine race. Now, there is Takagi getting out of shape in the background. You saw Michael Schumacher, but whilst it's certainly going to be a win if Häkkinen can just finish these last few corners for McLaren, that's going to be 10 World Championship points for them. Ferrari are going to be very much in the ascendancy in the Constructors' Championship. Eddie Irvine is still just a few tenths of a second behind Ralf Schumacher in 5th position, but Michael Schumacher looks as though he's going to finish in 2nd place, and Ferrari look as though they're going to be on 8 World Championship points. And Mika Häkkinen goes round the duckbill, drops downhill, up to the Mergulo now, climbing. That is turn 11, downhill a bit now. Now he starts the climb out of turn 12, up to the Junkau. And Mika Häkkinen and McLaren are within a few hundred yards of victory in Brazil. Over the line goes the Finn. Victory for Häkkinen, victory for McLaren, 2nd place for Michael Schumacher, and the gap between them only 4.9 seconds. Heinz-Harald Frentzen should be coming home in 3rd position, but the question is, who is going to be 4th?
Well, hopefully there's obviously Michael Schumacher cruising up behind the McLaren. A strong team victory there, I'd say, for McLaren. That long first stint definitely gave them track position and definitely gave them the race. Now we're watching now for Frentzen and Ralf Schumacher and Irvine to come over the line, but they're a long way behind. In fact, I don't think there's enough time left for them to make a difference. Their race is over.
They have finished the race because they had been lapped. So that means to say that only 3 drivers are going to have gone the full distance in Brazil. Mika Häkkinen wins by 4.9 seconds from the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, following his 2nd place for Jordan in Australia, takes a superb 3rd place here in Brazil, and benefits, of course, in terms of World Championship position. Ralf Schumacher, a lap down in the Williams, finishes 1 place lower than he did in Australia. And there is Frentzen. He's run out of fuel, but he's perfectly all right because he'd been lapped, so he'd in effect taken the checkered flag, and he's definitely finished in 3rd position. Schumacher, Ralf 4th. The 2 Schumacher brothers, both in the top 4 places. Eddie Irvine 5th and Olivier Panis 6th for Prost.
Just looking at the computer there, Mary, I think Frentzen's actually stopped on the last lap. He hasn't crossed the start-finish line. I think what's probably saved him is that Ralf and Irvine can't complete their final lap because they've been lapped already. So Frentzen, I think, fails to finish, but still finishes on the podium.
Boy, is there going to be a crowd at Imola in Italy for the San Marino Grand Prix on May the 2nd in 3 weeks' time, because Eddie Irvine leads the Drivers' Championship for Ferrari by 2 points from Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Mika Häkkinen, who tie in 2nd place, just 2 points behind Irvine. And in 4th position, it's Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. 7th position as Mika Häkkinen joyfully drives in. And it's an equal 5th in the Drivers' Championship between Michael Schumacher and Fisichella. So Michael Schumacher is 6 points behind Eddie Irvine. Now, in terms of the Constructors' Championship, well, Ferrari started off with 10 points at the beginning of this race. They've got 6 for Michael Schumacher. They've got 2 for Eddie Irvine, so they are on 18 points, which gives them a very satisfactory lead in the Constructors' Championship. As Michael Schumacher coasts into the Parc Fermé. Well, what do you think, Martin? Ferrari going to be happy or not too happy?
I think they're going to be ecstatic, to be honest. I think the way it's been looking up until just before the race, they probably wouldn't have dared dreamed of this kind of result and giving McLaren such a close run. It shows them that their pace is not so far behind. They had ran the same strategy, had more or less the same pace, and I think the whole demeanour of the team will be much, much better than it was before the start of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, McLaren definitely hit the ground running faster than Ferrari in Australia. But presumably, as Ron Dennis embraces Mika Häkkinen and now David Coulthard's McLaren, which disappeared from the race long, long time ago, in fact, on lap 22 is being retrieved. It means to say that presumably the McLaren was further developed, and this would give Ferrari, who I know have got a lot of new bits ready to make it go faster, to close the gap earlier than they did last year.
Yes, if I was Eddie Irvine, I'd be having a fairly... my first question would be why was I pulled in? Because clearly the car did finish the race comfortably, so I think Eddie will be asking that question when he gets back to the pits, because it could so easily have been yet another podium for Eddie. But that's 117 wins now for McLaren in their team history. Ferrari, the winningest team, on 120, so that's remarkably close, isn't it? Ferrari have started now 605 Grand Prix. But as I said, I think they're going to go home much, much happier than they perhaps anticipated this morning. But a good run for Panis in 6th place, Murray, with the Prost team. They only scored 1 point in the whole of last year, a point already in the second race. Benetton, another disastrous day, so mixed fortunes all the way through. Interesting race and fairly predictable result in a way.
Well, just to underline what you were saying about Ferrari's happiness, as a result of both their cars finishing in the top 6 here in Brazil, they are 6 points ahead of a tie between Jordan and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari on 16 and Jordan and McLaren both on 10. And the Williams team is in 4th position ahead of Benetton and Stewart. And I feel so sorry for Stewart, because after doing so well in qualifying, after an awful time in Australia when both their cars were effectively out at the start, although Barrichello clawed his way back so superbly to 5th place at the end of the race, they really deserve better than they got here in Brazil. But they will be enormously encouraged by the progress that they've made, and rightly so, and we can expect them to be right up towards the front for the rest of this season, which looks as though it's going to be absolutely superb. Yes, that's Alexander Wurz walking in.
We've had confirmation that, as we thought, Häkkinen had a gear shift problem, a hydraulic or electronic problem, and that's why he lost the lead early in the race. And I'd imagine what he would be able to do is switch over to a secondary electronic control ECU unit or gearbox control unit, something like that, and that's why he was then able to carry on at a pace fast enough to win the Grand Prix. So there were some gremlins for Häkkinen, but drove around them well and kept his head for a fine win.
Recap on the situation in Brazil. The second Grand Prix of 1999 was won by Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren, ahead of Michael Schumacher there and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow overalls. First place for McLaren, second place for Ferrari, third place for Jordan, Williams 4th with Ralf Schumacher, Ferrari 5th with Eddie Irvine, and as we have said, a fine 6th position for Prost, and a rather weary looking Heinz-Harald Frentzen trudges on to the podium to take up his 3rd position place behind Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen as the national anthem of Finland rings out again. Incidentally, 8 points in the lead in the Constructors' Championship. And the British national anthem now for McLaren, the winning constructor at Sao Paulo. Emotional moment now as Viviana Senna, the sister of the late great Ayrton Senna, who was the teammate to Mika Häkkinen in 1993 at McLaren, presents Mika with that magnificent trophy for the winning driver. Well done, Mika. Mark de Petter gives the Constructors' Trophy to Ron Dennis. Heaven knows how many times Ron Dennis has fulfilled that role now. And Reginaldo Bufaichal gives the second place driver to Michael Schumacher, who must be very happy with the 6 points that he's got here in Brazil. And now Heinz Harrell gets a little smaller salver for third place. Nice for the trophy cabinet. 4 World Championship points. Second in Australia, third in Brazil. Well done, Heinz Harrell. 1 Finn, 2 Germans on the top 3 steps of the podium in Brazil. And the prospects of a great San Marino Grand Prix at Imola in Italy in 3 weeks' time, with things close indeed. And Ferrari in the ascendancy in the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship in their home country. And Viviana gets a splash of champagne from Mika. All right, Mika, you're forgiven. Now go and drench the others. Well, I suppose if you're going to cool down, champagne's as good as anything. Great day in Brazil.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin, and thanks, of course, to Murray. A real pain in the neck then for Mika Häkkinen, but he won't worry about that. He loves Interlagos. Remember, his first genuine win here, really, I would call it, last year, after those step-aside successes at Jerez and in Melbourne. Well, a pain in the neck as well in the end for poor Rubens Barrichello, the man who packed Interlagos today. He talks now to Louise Goodman.
You're right there, Jim, an even bigger pain in the neck for Rubens Barrichello. Rubens, my heart went out to you when I saw that engine go.
Yeah, no, mine too. It was a pity because, you know, a great start, a great 24 laps where I think Mika had a problem, but I was leading. I was just back to the Formula 3 times. I have a competitive car. There was no mistake. It was just, you know, I was actually faster than Michael at that time. He was on 1 stop. So we still have to play catch up a little bit to get faster than the Ferrari and the McLarens, but we're playing with the big ones. We're really doing. So it was just a pity to see that the engine was down.
The engine wasn't your only problem, I understand. You had trouble with your helmet as well?
Well, it was one part of the helmet that came a little bit unloose, so I had a lot of buffeting on the straight. So I was asking the team if they could take the extension of my helmet away on the pit stop, but unfortunately I never got the chance to do that because the engine failed before.
Were you aware of the crowd reaction as you were going around the track?
Well, but I mean, it's almost 70,000 people, so you could see a little bit. You could see, I mean, you could not check because it was the concentration might have gone away, but it's you could just spare a little time with them. It was great.
You've ended up with no points, but still so many positive things to take away with you this weekend. Is that right?
Well, I said at the beginning of the season that whenever you're knocking on the door, it has to happen. So for 2 races now, we're knocking to be on the podium, and we led the race. So it might happen soon.
We look forward to Imola. Thanks, Rubens.
Well, he knows that feeling. I think that's once out of 7 that he's managed to finish his home Grand Prix, but better luck next time, Rubinho. Okay, we will be back with more interviews and more analysis from from Sao Paulo. Rejoin us in a couple of minutes. And welcome back to Sao Paulo. So Mika Hakkinen is the big winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix, followed by Michael Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Let's drop into the press conference now and find out what the big three have got to say for themselves after the race.
Mika, many congratulations on winning the Brazilian Grand Prix, but on the third lap there seemed to be some drama. David rejoined the race, you seemed to have a problem. Rubens and Michael went past. What happened?
I thought that time the race going to be over for me, you know. I was coming round the third corner and selecting up the gears normally and going flat out. Everything looked cool. The gap was getting bigger for Rubens that time. And selected other higher gear and suddenly no gear whatsoever. So I had a gearbox problem. Obviously I thought the game is over. And the team obviously told me to continue, and suddenly gears came back and I was able to continue, but that time already obviously I lost places.
Up until the first stop you followed Michael, but when he went in you had a couple of laps, you went very, very quickly, and again when you came out again you pushed hard. How much did you have in reserve during the race?
Let's say this way, I could have gone much quicker in those couple of laps, but I had traffic, all the time, and it was really unfortunate. I was really going for it. I was really enjoying driving, and I'm flat out, but I got a lot of traffic and I lost a lot of time. And probably I could have gone 1 second quicker, but I think I just went half a second quicker just because of traffic. Otherwise, there is always a little bit reserved during a race.
Mika, thank you. Michael, are you happy or disappointed to be second?
I could have been worse. I could have been third or fourth. And no, to be honest, already in the warm-up, we seemed to be more competitive, and we proved that in the race. Made a huge step forward. It was obvious that Mika was faster when he was behind me, but obviously overtaking in Formula One is very difficult, and he never got a chance. We planned the pit stop to our knowledge in the best way to keep him behind us, but he was able to put in some fast laps and join the circuit in front of me, so nothing we could do on that. Afterwards, I just kept pushing, kept him under pressure as much as I could do. Obviously, he wasn't really flat out, but still, you want to keep up the pressure and see what happens, and that's what I did up to the end. With the gap, I can live personally because I know what to expect for the further races in the car development. And the second we had in qualifying was unacceptable, but the gap we're having now, that's all right. We can live with this, and I'm pretty sure the season is long. We can deal with this, and we're going to see some more close fighting in the future, I guess.
As you say, you really improved the car overnight. What did you do to it?
Yeah, you would like to know that, I guess, yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Heinz-Harald, 2 races for Jordan, 2 podiums, equal second in the championship, but drama at the end of the race. What happened?
You mean the last lap? Well, I don't know. I all of a sudden lost fuel pressure. I was really surprised when the engine stopped and the team didn't tell me, obviously, that I was short on fuel. I don't know. It's really the problem that we had no fuel at the end. I know only that I saw the fuel pressure sign coming up. And by this time I was pushing like hell. I didn't want to get lapped by Mika. Also, I had a very strong mid-race situation that I was very long out and tried to fight my places back on old tires. I had quite a lot of big offs, but fortunately I stopped at the right moment and enough for finish third.